Hey guys, we're back with our next signpost. We're hitting them pretty hard this week. This signpost is the one last year you would have called again and again. And since we're using our fancy pants literary terms, we're calling this a motif or symbolism. And we talked about motif and symbolism last year in school. But the signpost here is when you're reading and you notice a word, a phrase, a situation, an object that's mentioned over and over again. And this motif or symbolism means that a word or phrase may be repeated or used in an odd way over and over in the story. An image or an object reappears several times during the course of the book, or an event may happen several times in a story. So if you see this happening, this motif, this symbolism, this again and again, you need to ask yourself, why does this keep happening again and again? Now, motif and symbolism is a slightly larger idea than just again and again. It's sometimes a symbol might appear just like 3 times in a story, but it's still symbolic. It's still important. Let's look at a couple notes here. First of all, the repetition that we're noticing that makes the motif or the symbol, it should be unusual, not expected. Somebody's name coming up over and over again, if they're the main character, that's normal. You would expect some things to pop up again and again. But when we're talking about motif or symbolism, it should be unusual, not expected. This repetition can be a repetition of words. Yes, it can be a repetition of phrases. But zooming out and thinking about what a motif is or what a symbol is, it can also be an object that appears again and again. It can be an event. It can be an idea. Do you remember the story we read, The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe last year? And he actually kills the old man he's living with and he buries him. But he hears that heart thump, thump, thumping even after the man is dead. And that idea of guilt shows up over and over again. That idea of guilt is a motif. The idea of a heart beating is a symbol of the man's guilt, the murderer's guilt. And that heart beating, the thump, thump, thump of different things, that's a motif to remind us of guilt. Think too, if you want to go to movies, over and over again in the Star Wars movies, we see examples of somebody talking with another, the words of the wiser, right? And they're talking with another person, and they're talking about the struggle between good and evil, light and dark. Light and dark is a strong motif or symbol in the Star Wars movies. Really, all 9 of them. They're 9 or... yeah, I think they're 9 of them. So that's what we're talking about. Motifs are symbols. I'd like to read you a story. Valediction. This is a short story, and I want you to watch for motifs and symbols that come up. So valediction is a fancy word that means the act of saying goodbye. And it has the same root as valedictorian, which as you move into high school, you'll start seeing, and you've already, if you've attended graduations, you've seen the valedictorian who gives the farewell speech to high school. So valedictorian or valediction is the title of this short story, and it's based on the Latin word vale, which means goodbye in Latin, and dicere, which means to say. So valediction. This is written by Sherman Alexie. He's a Native American author. Watch for objects, actions, or words that come up again and again. Are they motifs? Are they symbols? Pay attention. And there will be other signposts here I'm hoping we can talk about too. So let's get into the story. Valediction. After school, after football practice, every day for 3 years, John and I walked to the grocery store in our little town and bought candy, potato chips, and soda pop. It was a ceremony. We said hello to the old couple who owned the store, stepped into the walk-in cooler, grabbed our cold drinks, paid for them and our other snacks, and headed to John's house or mine, depending on what our parents were planning to cook for dinner. It was an average day for 2 average kids. But one day, in November of our senior year, John and I, as usual, stepped into the cooler and grabbed our favorite cans of pop. But then we looked at each other and we both had the same thought. I don't know why it happened. Without saying a word, John and I grabbed 3 6-packs of soda and stuffed them into our duffel bags. Carrying the carbonated loot, we paid for our usual junk food, walked to John's house, raced into his bedroom, and celebrated. We drank all that pop and got wound up and stupid on sugar and caffeine. We could have stolen beer, but we were athletes, and jocks did not get drunk in our school. The next morning, we met up before school and vowed to never do it again. One time was kind of innocent, but more than that would be criminal. But after practice that night, we did it again. Then again, the day after that, we shoplifted for a week. The thrill and guilt grew bigger each time. We joked and laughed with the old people who owned the store. We paid for $5 of snacks as we stole 20 more. Then I couldn't handle it anymore. John, I said, we have to stop. We're going to get caught. They'll kick us off the team. They might throw us out of school. Just one more time, he said. Come on, Pete. They're too old to catch us. I can't do it, man. You've always been a wuss. I walked home alone while John went to the store. I thought he might text or call me after he left the store. I didn't hear anything from him. When I got to school the next morning, I immediately heard the bad news. John had been caught shoplifting. I knew they'd wonder how I was involved. John and I went everywhere together. Halfway through the first period, I was summoned to the principal's office. He was there with the superintendent, the school counselor, and the football coach. It felt like an interrogation. Peter, the principal said, I'm sure you know why you're here. Because of John, I said. Yes, he said. Do you know what he was doing? Were you involved? I wanted to tell the truth. I knew that I should confess, but I felt like I'd destroy my life by admitting to the crime. I wondered if John had already told him that I'd stolen nearly as often as he had. Did he do the right thing? Pete, the principal asked again, were you involved in this? No, sir, I said. They all studied my face. They knew I was lying. They wouldn't let me get away with it. Okay, Pete, the principal said. John already told us he did it alone. I could tell they hadn't believed him either, but there was nothing they could do. I hadn't confessed, and John had denied that I was a thief, too. He was kicked off the football team, sentenced to community service picking up litter around town, and was suspended from school for a month. During that month, he and I didn't see each other. We didn't call or text. We'd been constantly together for years, but things had changed. I don't know why he didn't contact me, but I was too ashamed to talk to him. I'd let him take all the punishment. I kept playing football. I didn't have to scoop up dog poop while my classmates watched. I wasn't suspended, and my reputation wasn't ruined. I wasn't branded as a good kid gone bad. In fact, some people thought John had betrayed me by shoplifting and nearly getting me into trouble. When John came back to school, he wouldn't look at me, and I wouldn't look at him. The silence went on for the rest of the year. We ignored each other at our graduation ceremony. Our parents ignored each other too. Late that night, at a kegger down by the river, we stood at separate campfires. I didn't drink anything, but he got really drunk. I was worried for him. He caught me staring. He threw his beer into the fire and staggered up to me. He grabbed me by my shirt and shook me. You aren't who I thought you were, he said. Neither are you, I said. That's the story. Kind of ends abruptly. Did you catch any motifs or symbols in the story? Something that popped up more than once that seems to say more than just the object alone. What were some of those things that came up again and again? What are motifs or symbols in the story? Please leave your comment in the comment section or the answer section in the Google assignment, and I will see you on Thursday.